Greetings everyone, this is Lodrik again. This is the game War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. And today we want to check one of the old turns in the match Dojo against Lodrik, and this will be today turn number 8. Means 21st and 22nd December of 1941. So let's see. At this stage of the war, the Japanese forces already took the first bases of Philippines and also conquer. In Malaysia, normally the most important bases. And I think we had also already some navy battle in Port Moresby area, simply to intercept some cargo shipping, to block Dojo's attempt to reinforce Port Moresby, so that in the later stage of the war it's more easy to take that base. Okay, this is near Pearl Harbor, if I remember right. Yeah, here's Pearl Harbor, so west of Pearl Harbor we interdict here some small cargo ship with our light cruiser formation. But it's really only a small light cargo ship, so nothing with real value. So this is Johnson Island, west of Hawaii. I mean, this was of course a little risky, there can be more, but it's always a gamble. And we saw that our bombardment of Pearl Harbor at least damaged normally all battleships, and 2 at least sunk. And I expected that maybe most of them at least out of action for a half year or maybe more. Okay, this is source of Pearl Harbor. But we was a little unlucky, and we attacked this AVD, but of course the AVD is something like a destroyer, so hard to sink this kind of ship. And this also have not much value. Even if we sink this AVD, I mean it's nice, but I would be more happy to sink big cargo ships, tanker like this. A DMS, so a destroyer minesweeper, also a destroyer with the purpose of sweeping mines. This attempt was also a failure. Here we had a cargo ship, but our attack, or the submarine's attempt to attack this cargo ship failed because gets detected. So a lot of noise, but with not real big impact. We sunk this small light cargo ship, but yeah, at least it gives still pressure to Dojo. This is one of the reasons why I go out with his cruiser formations. Not so much to really sink a lot, but let him fear that my cruiser formations are everywhere, and he must normally then create heavy armed and escorted task forces. And of course the Allies, after this strike on Pearl Harbor, they have not many cruisers and nearly no battleships left. So it is hard for the Allies to protect all their shippings at the early stages of the war. Here we get some scout information, but we try to bomb, but no success. This is a scout plane. You can see we try to attack, but we get no hit confirmation. Yeah. this is also one of the reasons why I normally always normally bunch cruisers and destroyers together, or battleships with destroyers. Never let the destroyers operate on their own, simply because most of the light cruisers and all of the heavy cruiser or battleships, they all have scout planes, and it's simply much easier to detect enemies if your task force has at least 3-4 scout planes. Okay, here this is now our land-based Zero fighters, and we're sweeping now the skies of Changsha, and this is now after 1 week. Let's just say this is the second week of the war, end of the second week, and at this stage of the war, Dojo had at least still some fighters up somewhere. If you see the other episodes, then you know how this ends. There is later on not more much left for Dojo to use. But now early on he still tried to defend his bases, and my Zeros still have to finish this threat. And depending how successful Dojo's fighters can defend the bases here, the Japanese lose more or less airplanes and pilots. Airplanes are always not super critical. At the beginning Japan also lacked the industry production capacity. But after 1 month, normally if the player wants, he can push out many more planes. If this is really useful and necessary is the other question. I simply would try to push engines. Get the engines, the H-34, H-35 fast over 500 units to get the R&D bonus. And I would first invest in engines and heavy industry. And after maybe in March, if the next generations of airplanes slowly going online, then I would maybe invest more in aircraft production. But it's really heavily related to where you want at your focus. If you try to win the war in the first 6 months, then of course you don't must care so much R&D and not so much heavy industry. The heavy industry will first give you after 1 year some benefit. In the first 12 months it's investment, but you never get enough back out of this. So if you want to make it fast and bloody, go all in. But the really problem is if this first 6 or 12 months are over and you don't cripple the allies completely, means if you don't take a Suva or maybe New Zealand or Ceylon, I think this is normally what you must achieve. Take Ceylon, take New Zealand, take Suva, New Caledonian. This is a must-have if you want to have the auto victory at the early stages of 43. But this is really the greater strategy question. And there is not only one way. There are hundreds of options you can choose. And this makes the game, of course, flexible or fun to play. If there's only one option to go and all others will fail, then I would say this kind of stuff will be boring for me. But luckily this game is really open and you can choose. Of course there some stuff makes no sense. Like in my other game with THG, I would simply say there are many stuff wrong or make not really sense. You can do it, but I don't know why I will push some airplanes. They are already outdated. Why I want to produce them. Also some stuff you can push heavy industry or engine production, but you must keep always in mind how much you want to push it, because you can only build one factory per day. So if you push the factory 300, then you need nearly 1 year to finish this. And if it's an old engine like a H32, H33 like this, I don't see really a benefit to push this old engines too much, simply because they will be soon or later not more useful. Yeah, but strategy decisions. Okay, here we can see that the zeros more or less win. I mean, it's, let's say there was an air battle, and at least I think one airplane we lost, 1-0. But we kill now official 1 to 4. At the end of the turn, we will see what is in the true numbers, and if you can accept this as a Chinese, hard to say. I would say this is still victory for the Japanese, because it gives the pilots a lot of experience. Yeah, you lose one pilot, but one guy is always the unlucky guy. So one guy must always be the loser. So now we have this typical Chinese bombardment. We have 3 more fighters, but only one Russian-Chinese fighter left here. And we get the kill. Good. Clean, fast, without any trouble. Go in, kill them, and return to base. And everyone is happy, at least on the Japanese side. I mean, who cares, the Chinese? Oh, in this case, Dojo really get his I-16, so the better Russian fighters here in the air, and they intercept our light bombers. I mean, Sonia and Mary are both one-engine light level bombers. But they had the speed advantage, so the I-16 is simply too slow to have a long period of time to attack these bombers. I mean, the Key 51 and Key 32 are also slow, but if everyone is slow, then it doesn't matter more. So the time for intercepting was too short for the I-16 to really get enough damage on my bombers. So it was a little lucky. We get some damaged machines and maybe have later some operational losses, but this can happen. And even if we kill 1 or 2 of my bombers, bomber piles are still, I would say, the thing what you can throw away most easy, because I really think there's you can make this ground bombardment, airfield attack. This is the same skill, and maybe the other option is with the Key 21 and Key 48. You can go also, after you finish the ground bombardment skills, you can maybe also go for submarine hunting. Then they have at least a second skill, because it's not very powerful, but it's still possible to sink submarines with army bombers, and it's an option. I also found out it's maybe okay. Before I was always trying to push normally my float planes for submarine hunting, but army bombers can also do this. At least they can support. The advantage of the float plane to hunt for submarines is simply they are more easily flexible to use them in the big area, in the open Pacific. To bring army bombers to the small islands is a bigger logistic task, and you need a land-based AV support. Float planes you can simply use with float plane tender. That is for small islands simply much easier to maintenance and to install. Here we try only to bomb some from Dojo's base forces running here back to Rangoon, and we try to hit them, but it's not easy. And this is also important that we get this road done to Xinjiang. So get this road done, get the railway done. I would say this is really important to easily ship stuff later up and down. And my game style is simply to create the armies. Everything is based on the HQ. Everything what belongs to the HQ will stay in the same hex so that their armies are moving. And then I often put 1 or 2 armies together to create a overall command and a task force. And you also don't need too many army groups separately on the map. I think if you have 1 Mongolian I use here, then 1 East Xi'an army is here now on the map, and then I create here 1 army group of source of Nanyang. So I would not split too much. The Japanese forces are split at the beginning, but also the Chinese forces are not in the concentrate locations. So normally it's a race against the time. Who can concentrate his forces first? Who can push first? And can the Chinese create some defense positions the Japanese cannot crack more easily? Or can the Japanese create some strong task force simply steamroll the Chinese armies? Because normally Chinese troops need a fort. If you don't have forts, the Chinese they often not a very successful land battle against the Japanese forces. And to get the advantage, it is important to use your Air Force. You have the 2nd Army Air Force from Manchukuo. If you bring this to China and use this light and medium bombers simply to always attack enemy Chinese forces on the ground, you will not, like here now, we don't damage them so critical, but we slow them down. So this is the advantage here. And you have this Dojo fighters, and if you are the Japanese, you always, it's maybe the best to try to use your Dojos to attack enemy flying tigers, wherever the flying tigers will show off. I mean, if the allied player use the flying tigers in China, you can keep them here. If the allied players take them more or less to Burma, maybe also bring your Dojos here. The Dojos are, I think, from fire point or firepower, they're very equal with the Zeros, I would say. And this prototype Dojo is faster than the Zero, have a little more firepower. Oh no, maybe the Zero have more firepower, but the Dojo is simply faster. but the range is lacking. But it's the best what the Japanese army have. Okay, this is now our first carrier group. Hunting here east of Australia near Townsville already. Dojo's cargo forces. Because normally most of the Allies players, they try as soon as possible bring stuff to Port Moresby. It is because if you Allies can keep Port Moresby, they have always a staging base will always help to fight here. And if the Japanese can kick the Australian out of Port Moresby, it is very hard for the Allies to coming back. And because for me it makes sense, there's not much that the Allies have with the first 4 weeks, and so I go here full and bring terror and disorder to Dojo's attempt to create here something. And of course this is more or less a slaughter now, because most so far I know there's really not much that the Australian have at this stage of the war. And if the Ally player not rush his carrier immediately to Sydney, where I lost at turn 2, then here in December there's nothing can stop me now. But of course, if the Ally player don't try to support Port Moresby and don't send here anything, then there's also nothing for me to think. But Dojo tried to play this game with Port Moresby, and I was successful at, not that we think here too much. Some cargo ships are not changing anything. But it will give already at day 1 or in the first weeks of the war already pressure on the Allies' position in that area. So you can see we scouting, and every scout plane, like here now, they try to make a bomb attack, and sometimes you get this, the pilots say, oh, I tried to bomb and I was successful. But like I said before, this information is in best case a 50-50 correct. Okay. This is now this everywhere some broken British, Dutch and Malayan forces in the jungle. So there was no really time for Dojo to organize something meaningful. This is important for the Japanese. You must simply crash these bases and take them. Some bases are important because of the oil, like Miri is important for the oil. And here the west area or source tip of Borneo, this is simply a good base for fighters. Or you can also bring their torpedo bombers, simply because this will help you to control the air and the seas of Java and around. Okay. So the carrier is still picking up stuff. But only light cargo ships. But we get some hits. And you can see that this looks like that this cargo ship have cargo fuel. So Dojo uses dry cargo ships to transport fuel to Port Moresby or wherever he won't go. Hard to say. And of course, if a cargo ship have burning fuel, It's very easily burned down. Ah. Yeah, so heavy fires, but not heavy damage, but this one is heavy damage and heavy fires. So, and remember, a ship with active fire cannot repair. Even if the ship can return to Townsville or any other harbor, the crew or the port must first get rid of the fire before you can repair the ship. And if there's fire on the ship, every turn there's a check if the damage increase. So fire is always for ships the most dangerous stuff. Yeah, this is this local, or this I think a minesweeper. Also only 1 or 2 points, looks like a very small ship, but and if we get a torpedo or even 2 torpedoes inside this kind of ship, then it's hit but no explosion. Yeah, this can happen also with the Japanese. But it was only 1 ship, and the ship is dead. Still more. This is already burned. And there's an exit. There's not really any hope left for this kind of ship to survive this. The next hit. And the next. This is a big advantage of this this 6 main carriers of the Japanese. The base pilots, they are all more or less very high skill. Not all are elite, but they normally starting, I think, with nearly 70, so they're very close. And this is the biggest advantage, so that you have a strong task force, and they can normally kill everything what they can find. The question is, you must find something you can kill, and don't waste your pilots. So this is also why the reason the attack on Pearl Harbor, yeah, of course you must go for this, and you must cripple the enemy fleet, but don't try something over aggressive, I would say. The first day you get this bonus, you can attack with torpedoes, yeah, this is fine. I would use the torpedo bombers to attack the ships, and I would use the dive bombers to attack the airfields and try to kill as many Catalinas as possible, simply because Catalinas are the eye for the Allies, and if you can wreck the enemy Catalinas in Pearl Harbor, you have simply more time before the Allies really can see you are coming. And I think it's not really important to kill the fighters or the dive bombers or torpedo bombers, but to kill this many Catalinas in Pearl Harbor, this is really, I would say now, from my knowledge now, my standpoint today, it's the best, if you can choose, kill most of these Catalinas in Pearl Harbor. This is the biggest impact you can create early on. Because of the fighters, if you kill some buffaloes or some shitty torpedo bombers, this will not be the big impact. Okay, this is only now, after we took Hong Kong, or after my armies I sent to Hong Kong. This is also important to take Hong Kong, but you can check the episodes before. After Hong Kong, I normally try to rush this street here up, or this direction, to Kukong and yeah, control all these highways here. So this is now the attack on Georgetown, and we take the base give up. Yeah. Easy clean victory. Georgetown is normally a good location. You can yeah, have here some submarine base before you take Rangoon later maybe. It's the harbor is big enough to support normally submarines. But for cruisers or capital ships you need normally Singapore to rearm, to repair and all this stuff. Okay, this battle here in the jungles of Malaya, it was not, at least we are not finished so far. A stalemate. No one is strong enough, but the Malayan British forces are running out of morale and they are breaking mental. I think they have still maybe enough guys, but they don't have more the will to fight sooner or later. Good. So now we enter December 22nd. So we had a lot of Air Force activity against land units and Navy units the 21st. But our submarines was not really active, but luckily now one of our submarines just find a small cargo ship here at Port Blair. Yeah, this is also a very typical action of the Allied player. Of course, if the Allied player can reinforce Port Blair and install here some scout plane base, then the Allies can see what is coming to Rangoon. This of course makes sense. And if the Japanese can take Port Blair, then they know what is coming to support Rangoon. And Port Blair is normally very weak at the beginning of the war, so I sent here simply only one submarine to make sure that if Dojo bring here something like this cargo ship, that we can get rid of them. Oh, again. We attack the destroyer, but of course, no chance. And this time Dojo get one hit on our submarine. But one hit is often not really enough. 5, 6, 10 hits, then the submarine gets in trouble. So ships just sunk. Maybe the cargo ship. And the night is over now. No, still not. No. So no Navy engagement. In this case it's an American submarine. Try to sink our light cargo ship. So this is east of Saipan, or south of Marcos Island. But I think this is a Mark 14s. They don't have the tendency to really hit where the submarine captain wants. And here we have So this is our battleships too, and this is maybe a local minesweeper again. I don't know how many we already killed. This is one more. So 1 point ship. Oh, looks like there's a second cargo ship. The other one was burning. But we only make 1 shell hit. Low gun ammo. So the submarine consume all the ammunition. Bad weather. Okay. This is our zeros station here, Shingawa, whatever. And this is what I mean. This bases normally don't have other great value, but if you have an airbase here, you normally can more or less make sure that no ship can enter or leave Palembang, because it's easy to control this. You can also sweep normally Singapore like I do now, or you can sweep Palembang, and Batavia is here in this area, source of Oosthaven. And this is why this location is normally interesting at this stage of the war. Later, if the Japanese take Singapore, this base is normally not more important. Especially if you have Singapore and Palembang, I think you can keep here some patrol aircraft and scout the sea, but you can do the same out of Singapore or Palembang, so it's double and make it only more complicated. Yeah, the zeros, of course, they have here now an easy task. Buffalo's 1 and the Blenheim fighters. The Blenheim fighters are bomber interceptor, but they have no chance against something like a 1-engine fighter. And the Buffalo is also only 2nd-class fighter. And these are also more or less very experienced top pilots. And soon, if they have more of this kind of engagements, many of these pilots will be Ace, and then maybe get also elite status with experience over 80. Yeah, and this, the tactic, or the reason is more or less, I won't get rid of any fighters active in Singapore as soon as possible, because if there's not many other bases here in this area left. Normally Kuala Lumpur can be also airbase for the British, but if the Japanese take Kuala Lumpur and get rid of most of the fighters from Singapore, then normally the Japanese can here run torpedo bombers or land or army bombers without escort, because then there's not really a chance for the Allies to intercept them, because Palembang is normally too far away for any interception. I mean, you can make long range cap from Palembang to Singapore, but I don't know which fighter can do this for the Allies in this early stage. I don't think, because long range cap you can only even with Spock tanks is not possible. So this is why I won't get rid of this Singapore fighter force, so that I can let my bombers run on their own and keep my fighters focused for the important tasks, sweeping, training, like this. So we can see here without a kill, we achieve here 4 kills on our own. So looks good. Japanese fighters, no one can stop them. Now this is the second day. There's still some Chinese pilots left, but it's already less than before. And here's one more kill for our guys. Oh. Only 1 kill but 3 damage enemies. The problem is with the enemy, if they get damaged after some days, they normally coming back. So you must keep this kind of sweeping of enemy bases active for more or less non-stop. Because you never know if there are maybe still some fighters left. But you can reduce the numbers. Like if I go now with 20 fighters or zeros in, then later I can only keep 2 or 3. Because this is already enough to engage enemy. So long, I mean, the Chinese, they also don't have much fighter force. So if you know that you kill already most of them, it needs long time for the Chinese to get reinforcements. I don't know even if they get really much in 42. Maybe in 43 or 44 the Allies will support the Chinese national forces with more equipment. Yeah, this is from the day before the same situation, but this time the I-16 get 1 kill and 1 more damage. But now they're over. Oh yeah, so 1 airplane left, lost. Not a big deal. Guns jam. Yeah, some damage and 1 destroyed. But at least we get some kills here. So it was not for nothing. Bombardment. Here I must only make sure that sooner or later I must stop this bombardment, because if I come too close to Rangoon, there's a chance that Dojo will have here some interceptors. So maybe this is the last hex I will make air attacks, and if I come here Molemain, this base latest here I must stop. It's then too short and too easy to intercept this kind of bombers. Or option B is I will bring escort fighters here. Or I sweep Rangoon. But there's no airbase ready in this part of the map, so you must fly from Bangkok. And then you need zero fighters because even Oscars have a little trouble with this kind of range. You can use drop tanks, but then you will consume simply much more supplies, or double the supplies. So you can see that really every bomber I can find in Japan, in Manchukuo, in China, or wherever I really let them bomb every unit I can catch every day and always slow them down and support my ground forces in this case. And yes, of course, I don't know if it's a lot of work. I have 3 or 4 major air bases in China, and you must check them, of course, every turn and see if there's some trouble with fatigue, if they need reinforcements, if they have enough supplies, if they have aviation support, all this stuff. If you want to have a high efficiency, maybe not every turn, but twice per week, if I would say at least you must check them. And because we do here double day turns, I will normally check them nearly every turn. It's only click them, check them, and after 1 minute you know everything. If you must do something, yeah, then organize whatever is lacking and missing. Oh, again a small cargo ship. Today is really the day of the small cargo ships, and luckily they are mostly all Dojo's small cargo ships. So you can see that the captain more or less they make a decision that they say this cargo ship is too cheap to use torpedoes, so you use a deck gun. And this is normally enough. You can see heavy fires and heavy damage. That ship will normally not survive. And we get the feedback, something just sunk. Okay, one more attempt to break these forces here. But again, I mean, we have the advantage of 57 to 17, but this is, I think, heavy jungle, so not really easy to break. You can see terrain, but they have no morale, no experience. I mean, you can never trust this completely, especially this leader stuff is often very flawed. You can see how the attacker can have plus and minus leader. I mean, maybe there's a reason for this, but I don't give too much for this information. Like terrain, okay, makes sense. Morale makes sense. Maybe experience also makes sense. Sometimes then there's no supplies, this is important, or tired or fatigue is high, then you also get this information. And we can see that the more and more of Dojo's forces are now destroyed, and more is, I mean, disabled is maybe equally, but Dojo also lost a lot of his droids. So I think this unit is close to break. Okay. Now we arrived the day before Christmas. At least in Germany. So 23rd December 1941. And let's first check the intelligence information. So officially we had now 17 to 3 air kills. No one on the field, no flag issues, and the operation was also very equally 5 to 6. Okay. Sounds first like a good day. And I mean the I-15s, Buffalo, Hawk, they are all second class or even third class fighters. I mean the I-15 and I-16, I mean, yeah, they're very old. All of these airplanes are at least second class fighters. So Dojo lost a lot of these outdated fighters. And we lost 2 zeros. This is a first class. 2 Betty bombers by operation losses. Okay. One of our Key 51 is also all outdated. A light bomber. 1 heavy fighter is here. Oh, 1 P-40B operation losses. Okay. Yeah, but overall 22 to 9 looks first like a good day. Yeah. And from this 9 airframes we lost 2 pilots are missing and 2 are killed. So 4 out of 9 and 1 is wounded. So more or less we lost 4 pilots but 9 airframes. And this wounded, normally sooner or later he can return often. Let's say this. And ship sunk was now last. The Japanese lost nothing like usually, and we sunk 2 beta cargo ships. So this 7-point ships, standard cargo ship I would say, with speed of 12 and nearly 4,000 cargo capacity. It's very standard. And this is light cargo ships, only they're slow and less cargo capacity. And the AM, they can make some sub-hunter stuff. And you can also use them normally for minesweeping. This is the difference with the sea is always coastal. So this is a long-range minesweeper. You can add him because of the speed of 16 also to a task force, to follow a task force. But I often use the destroyer minesweepers because they are even faster than this. This is faster but not really fast enough. And this is the same stuff with local. They have simply nearly no range. They only stay in the harbor to make sure that the port have no enemy mines. Okay, so this is the kill count for this last turn. And anything else is you can see that slowly the pieces are moving. So we clean up Hong Kong, we're moving now here up and going then for Kokong soon, and then we take this road and normally try to take these 2 bases. We also clean up here some forces east of Changsha, and we can now return. We try to block this road and make sure that we are arriving at this crossroad before the Chinese can do this, and then we can get rid of all of them. We already took Wenzhou. I think Dojo simply give up this base. And I want to point out again that Wenzhou itself have normally not a big value. I don't know if you really can use it for something. The most important is for the Japanese, maybe not for the Chinese, but for the Japanese is they have a heavy industry. So you can invest in this city. I mean, will not go for too crazy, always like 10 or 20 per month. But you can install here some heavy industry stuff, and this will simply produce supplies and will support all your army activities in this area. Because there are not many bases all over China. I think maximum 10 cities have here heavy industry. And in other cities without heavy industry, like in Fuzhou, there is no heavy industry and you cannot build anything new. You can only upgrade stuff. And not everything. Like manpower, you cannot upgrade. Resources, you can also not upgrade. You can see there's no... You can only repair on off. You can also not stop the production, but you can also not increase the size. And with heavy industry, you have these options. You can say increase it if you have the supplies. See, it's not enough. You can make the production on off, or can make repair on off. Okay. Yeah. And so we must still get rid of these forces here, so I try to catch up here, moving, so maybe next turn we arrive here, and then we have this road under control, and then we must concentrate our forces, and then we can strike to Nanyang. I think we have now here the still the equipment is not arrived. Everything is still on the way. It's too early. I don't know even where's my headquarters. Here. Here's the 11th Army. And this forces belonging all to the 11th Army. So I think I wait for this forces to arrive back. Then I will take this 11th Army and then we're moving here to Nanyang. So this will still need 1 week to prepare everything, and in 2 weeks we maybe take the Nanyang. Maybe a little earlier, but we will see. And here, this is the other big forces. You see, this is around the 1st Army. But here is also the 6th Army coming close behind. So this is this double army. The 1st Army pushing this Chinese forces. And this needs a little more time because we must walk, fight, walk, fight, walk. So we cannot walk non-stop. But at the same time, this 1st or the 6th Army can walk non-stop. And before we reach Xi'an, both armies can normally link up. And then we have 2 full armies can make the strike on Xi'an. This is the strategy or the thinking behind. And good. And here we clean up some stuff between the lines and... These are normally all Mongolian forces. They are not the best forces, but they are enough to clean up your stuff and later go for this remote areas. Urumqi is the capital of Inner Mongolia. There's some stuff you can take or must take, or it's good to have it. But the big parts are normally here in Lenzhou and in Xining. These are normally the 3 bases you need to take here in Mongolia. But this basis is normally more easy to take from the source after take Xi'an, then drive here up, take these 2 bases, and then I would say return and then try to cross the mountains, even if it's... I mean, of course this is a small road for a big army. If you won't go here with too much stuff, think about your supply situation. Yeah. I sent here this to they are Southern Army, so they are flexible. These units you can go everywhere. I use them more or less to take these 2 bases here. And I think after this I will maybe walk to Canton or Hong Kong or even back and ship them out sooner or later. I'm not more so sure. But you can use this kind of units normally for everything where you need firepower fast on and flexible. Like maybe I send them to the Philippines because you can really send them wherever you need them. And in China, you normally, I would say, you have so many forces in China. If you want and if you organize as well, you can take out of Manchukuo enough stuff. And these two mixed brigades will normally not be a meaningful change. If they help here, of course, it can be. This is the support. Every unit helps, but yeah, I think it's better to send them maybe to Philippines or help here in Rangoon. But you also can say these are the better Navy Guards units. So if you normally you have a lot of this where they are now here. You have some of these Navy Guard units, and they often have only this attack value of 60, and they don't carry heavy equipment. Most of them have only mortars and rifles and something like this. And if you want to break something what is bigger and stronger, some islands, then you maybe can go with this kind of stuff. It's big to transport, of course. You have 4,000 troop load and cargo 1,000, but it's not like a whole division. It's and you can see you cannot upgrade this. So this is the maximum we can get out of this. I mean, they lost a little stuff, but their fighting power is around maybe 140. And you don't must buy them out. You can send. They also have no overall command. The overall command is Southern Army, and the Southern Army is now in. This is the Thai forces. I even not know more with my Southern Army. I think my Southern Army is already here on the way. Yeah. This is the overall headquarter. So these units are directly linked to this overall 5-star general. And you can use them also to work with army forces, but I would often use this kind of guy better to stay in Singapore or some other big location. And if you have broken units, you better bring these broken units to Singapore and have enough supplies there. And then this HQ will simply give a booster to repair the unit and get the unit active again. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that. So we take Georgetown, we take this base already, and the problem is only on this road is simply very slow. This pink stuff you move with half speed, roughly. So it's much easier to walk this west road down. But we also arrive here already in Johor Bahru. So we have here now attack value of 600. This is maybe enough already to take the base because we don't see it too much. And more stuff is moving here in. I mean, this is only support equipment. But and these are all these hunter groups to make sure that normally I want to keep here an active presence so that nothing really can come out of Palembang, not much can operate out of Batavia. Submarines Dojo can always use, but everything what is surface, especially cargo and tanker, slow stuff, easy to pick, easy to sink. Yeah, so you can see we spot some task forces, but like Surabaya or Batavia and also Palembang, there are always mines. So you cannot normally go with your task force. I mean, if you do this, you go with your task force inside a hex with enemy mines. Don't be surprised that if your ships get hit by a mine, and roughly I would say a mine hit is similar damage. I mean, the damage is similar to a torpedo hit. There's not much difference, I would say. There are different type of mines. Some are stronger, some are weaker, but I would compare to a torpedo hit. And if you stay here in Surabaya, get a torpedo hit, then where you won't go? This is a long, long way to Singapore. And so far we don't control Singapore. So the next shipyard we can use is here in Saigon. And I bring it up now. You can see that it starts with a 10, but I upgraded it to a 20. And this is enough normally for Saigon, don't need more. And yeah, you can see I have here some submarines everywhere in deep water normally. I mean, here is of course shallow water because everywhere is shallow water. But I try also to block where I guess that forces will go in and out. You can also see that I throw some mines here because this is shallow water. You will lose every day some mines, but in shallow water you only lose 5% of the mines per day. And I think in deep water it was 20%. But in the base you only lose, I think, 1%. So I think 1% loss per day, 5%, 20%. But you must be the owner of the base. If it's not your base, then I think it counts like shallow water, then it's 5%. And if you have this AMCs or ACMs, I always forget this. ACMs, yeah. ACM doesn't matter what size and how big it is. One ACM simply will make maintenance for 150 mines. So this base cannot drop under 150 mines so long I have one ACM here. If I get here a second ACM, all 191 mines will be here forever. But the ACM will consume, I think supplies, because they are not active. ACMs must be inactive. So they, for some reasons, the game say ACM must be inactive inside the port, not be in a task force. But local minesweepers must be active in a port, like this one. These are local minesweepers, and if you want that they sweeping enemy mines, they must be active in the base. There's a difference. Okay, I think this is yeah, first enough. You can see I block here also some. I normally want to make sure that not too much arrive here in Rangoon. In Chiang Mai, I simply try to bring in a lot of engineer stuff, so 128 engineers I have here, and very early on I already push here to build the airfield because it needs a long time to go. I mean, I can come to level 4 very fast, but after level 4 up to level 7 it will be slowly. And if you really, for fighters you don't need much more than level 4, but bigger is always more airplanes can operate out of the airfield. And if you want bombers simply need more space, so it makes maybe sense to go here for level 6, level 7. Okay. Anything else here? No. Don't forget to bring enough supplies to Miri, because if you want to fix something, you must pay 1,000 supplies for every factory. So still here 150,000 for the refineries, and also 150,000 for the oil field. So not much more here. Here is no activity. I think you see, I bring still stuff to Truk. I still don't have, I think I have here only 2 marine units so far. And here's more stuff is unloading now, yeah. So I try to bring as soon as possible this Navy Guard units all to Truk. I mean, I took Wake, and here's 1 Navy Guard unit, and I think this I will simply keep here, at least first. Because Wake is really important to take. Wake is too near to Truk that the Allies can keep it, because not for airplanes so much, but it's easy for the Allies to send here submarines out. If the Allies keep Wake, it is so easy to bring here always submarines out and interdict all shipping to Truk. And you can see if the Allies can intercept the supply line of Truk, it will also interdict normally everything what is source of this. Rabaul, Tulagi. So Guam you also must take, but it's not important because it's impossible to normally for the Allies to support this. But a Wake is a must take. And Midway is for me only a can take, because Midway is simply already too far away. It's too far away for the Japanese to support this, and for the Allies, it is more close to Japan, but Pearl Harbor is already here. So it's not a crazy distance. It's a distance of 30 hex. But from Midway to go to Truk is still already 55 hexes. And from Wake it's only 29 hexes. So only half the way you can see. Yeah. Our carrier fleet is here. Yeah. I think I will maybe move here the coast down and try to pick up more cargo stuff. And you can see that they have here some admiral commanding the forces, and I also give always a good captain normally to every carrier. And I also regroup this force. You can see only 4 main carriers are here. And 2 other carriers are somewhere on the way already. I don't know more. Normally I think I send them back to Tokyo. We can check this quickly. Give me active ships. Give me carriers. So, there. This is Kaga is already back. Oh, they are already both back. This is here in Australia. They are all here. Okay. So this is more or less the creation. You can see here. Escort carrier, light carrier, 2 fleet carrier, and 1 more escort carrier and 1 light carrier. And if I put them all together, I will have my 2nd carrier fleet. I do this for 2 reasons. So far I know is maximum strike power of an airstrike is I think 250 or 260. So it is not possible to get 1 strike over 250, 260 airplanes. If you have more airplanes in a carrier fleet, like if all carriers are together and I have maybe 500 airplanes together, and there's an enemy task force, if I go and make a strike, I will only use 250 airplanes. And then there's maybe a 2nd strike, again with 250. But we have 2 strikes and not 1 focus strike. And this is also a reason, and I simply say it makes more sense to have 1 carrier fleet for this southeast area against the Australian, and have 1 other carrier fleet to keep the British and American forces busy in here in the Indian Ocean. And these are normally 2 main fighting spots. You fight the British American here in India, and you fight the Australian, New Zealand forces with help of the Americans here in this East Australian Sea. And West Australia is of course always a spot you can go. The question is if you won't go here with carriers, you can go this of course and try to sink in more cargo ships, but it's never the critical spot of the map. The critical spot is normally here, the Bay of Bengal, and the must-have, or the Japanese must take Burma. This is a must, or you will lose the game, or you cannot win the game. Let's say this. It's simply there's too many points here and too much oil, and if the Allies keep Burma, they can normally start to, give early on pressure on Bangkok. This is simply too dangerous and not impossible to maintenance normally for a long time. So the Japanese must take Burma. If you cannot take Burma, you fail and the game is lost, I would say. And if on the second part is of course Ceylon. If the Japanese can take Ceylon, it's similar to if the Allies can keep Burma. If the Japanese can take Ceylon and maintenance Ceylon, it is very, very dangerous and very hard for the Allies to use India much more. It simply will, the Allied player will suffer a lot more losses, because for the Japanese it's easy to use the submarines everywhere. Yeah. Okay, and again, if you conquer something important with industry or oil, always make sure that you repair the oil, the refineries and the heavy industry, and don't repair manpower, don't repair resources, don't repair light industry. Forget it, it makes no sense. It's a game issue problem. My personal opinion is that this repair stuff is totally unrealistic, because normally I would normally go the opposite way, because now the game say if you want to upgrade something you pay 100 ground payment and the installation is 1000 or the repair. But I will switch it. I would say if I want to have an additional factory I must pay first 1000 down payment, but the repair is only 100. But this game is the opposite. It's super expensive to repair something, but it's very cheap to create a new factory. This is only my personal opinion. Good. Okay. So and we also get now more or less the feeling that our submarine fleet here of Hawaii have less picking now. It's more and more hard to get something. So I think sooner or later I have to break this and move half of the submarines maybe to other locations too close to California, and maybe the other submarines will go to try to hunt here of Suva area and New Caledonia, and also help here to blockade Port Moresby and all other stuff. Good. Anything else? I think I said this before. But also, I would not go to upgrade the shipyard of Tokyo. There is this game issue that you must upgrade the shipyard to a level 50 if you want to upgrade this scout cruisers. But I would not go for this. You have it's a cruisers. And I think there's a fast cruisers. Maybe this one. Oh, this is a light cruiser. Oops, wrong. This one. Yeah, this one. I don't think that they ever patched this out, but you can see this. This is This is now a CS, so it's a cruiser scout or scout cruiser, and you have here the option to change this CS to a support carrier or light carrier. And if you do this, you need a minimum shipyard size of 50. And normally you must write here normally Tokyo. So far I know you can only upgrade this ship in the shipyard of Tokyo. I will see if this still is this issue, but I read this online that they say if you want to upgrade this ship, and there's another ship, the sister ship, this one, they have the same issue, both 50. So this means you must first upgrade the shipyard of Tokyo to 50, so you must invest here 40, and you must not only, so you invest here 44,000 heavy supplies to only upgrade the shipyard. I mean, the question is, then you can upgrade the ship. And I don't know if this really makes sense. Simply, you have enough shipyard capacity. I mean, here you have already a shipyard of 90. You have Osaka is only 25, but you have here Kobe 90, and you have Kyoto with a 100, and I think Nagasaki have also a 90. So normally Japan have already far enough shipyard capacity to handle every damage you ever get. You also have Shanghai with a 50. You have Hong Kong with a 35. Normally I would, but I think this is damaged. Yeah, you can see. It's original 50, but there was some damage I take over the base. So from that point of, it makes no sense to upgrade anything in Tokyo. You have already enough. Okay, you can invest this 44,000 heavy supplies to upgrade the shipyard of Tokyo. Then you can upgrade these 2 ships. But you get 2 more light cruise carriers. I don't know if this will really change something. And these ships are fine. They are fast enough to operate with a carrier fleet. And they have a capacity of 24 airplanes. And if you load here jet airplanes, they have a range of 8, a maximum of 10. So they can normally scout everything, because your dive bombers will only go maximum 6 normally with maximum load, and the torpedo bombers only go to 7 normally. So a scout range of 8 is normally enough, and if you won't go to 10, you can also go temporary to scout of 10. So you have normally always a range. And yeah, of course, if you upgrade this to the light carrier, you can get here 30 airplanes. It's not so bad, but it's also not something, a game changer for me. Especially keep in mind, you invest this in the shipyard of Tokyo, and you have a delay time of 300 days. So you must invest the supplies, then you bring the ship to Tokyo, and then for 300 days you will have not this unit more. And you first can upgrade in November. So means in summer of 43 you get this ship back. So it's, I don't know, I don't think it really is an investment. That you take off this ship for nearly 1 year and then you get a light carrier. And if you don't have this ship scouting for you, then you need other airplanes scouting for you. So what you really win is hard to say. Okay, but I mean, I talked about this topic already before, but this is only to repeat this. Simply because it's a question of, for the Japanese, if you do this, you won't do this, yes or no. Because this is simply only these 2 ships, only these 2 ships have this, so far I know, these special rules that you only can upgrade in Tokyo, but the shipyard of Tokyo is not big enough originally. So, okay. Thank you all, see you again, take care, bye bye.